Nephilim trilogy made the CBA's bestsellers list and continues to thrill readers a decade later. He actually received an honorary doctorate from Pacific International University for his work on that trilogy. So Dr. L.A. Marzulli is also the author of the nonfiction work Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural, which shows how the current political landscape may indeed be bringing about fulfillment of ancient biblical prophecy. One of his latest works, The Alien Interviews, features 17 intense interviews with people who have been directly involved with the UFO phenomena and alien abductions. L.A. has lectured on this and other fascinating subjects at conferences and churches all over America, as well as on numerous national radio and television shows across the airwaves. And now it's my privilege to welcome him here to the Revolutionary Radio Project for the second time, actually. L.A., are you there?
I certainly am, Rob. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man, great to have you back. You also have something I didn't mention in your intro there. You have a DVD series you're working on called The Watchers. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we do. Watchers, the kickoff of the series is called just Watchers, and the subtitle is UFOs Are Real, Versioning, and Not Going Away. It's sort of a primer into the UFO phenomena. It's a great DVD to give a skeptic, because all we're doing is showing that something's going on here, folks. We don't tell you what it is, but something is going on. It's high strangeness. The phenomena exists. I love when Edgar Mitchell comes on. We have a voiceover of Edgar Mitchell saying that, Roswell was a cover-up. They've been here. The governments of the world have covered this up. I mean, Edgar Mitchell's an Apollo astronaut. Why is he telling us this? He's not just blowing smoke. The second DVD is called Signs in the Heavens and Earth. And what we put forth to the viewer on that DVD is the idea that it's not business as usual with all the earthquakes, the famine, floods, volcanic activity, and other anomalies, weather anomalies. It's not business as usual. It's something more. And, of course, I believe that we are in the birth pains. So Signs in the Heavens and Earth sort of touch base with Matthew 24, where Yeshua, Jesus, warns us what will be the signs of the second coming. We're actually working on Watchers 3, which are called Fingerprints of the Supernatural. In that we discuss the Shroud of Turin, the strange anomalous sounds that are being heard throughout the world, certainly the earthquakes, the Torah codes, and other interesting topics. And that should be out around Thanksgiving.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to that one. I have your other two, so that should be cool. You mentioned the Shroud of Turin. That's pretty cool, man. You're gonna deal with that in that particular episode?
Yeah, we're talking about the Shroud. We interviewed Dame Isabel Pixek, who brings a very unique perspective to the Shroud. One is she's a particle physicist, so she looks at the Shroud and begins to postulate how the image was created. She's also a world-class muralist, and she, will sign an affidavit that the Shroud is not a painting. It is not a painting. There are no brush strokes. There is no pigment, per se, found on the Shroud. So it's really interesting. The other gentleman that we interviewed was Barry Schwartz. He was the original photographer for the Shroud of Turin Research Project in 1978. Out of 120 hours that they were allowed to examine the Shroud, Schwartz was awake and forced himself with a lot of coffee for over 100 hours. So he brings also a very good perspective to the Shroud.
There's a guy, I don't remember if this is his name or not. I think it's Ian Wilson. Does that name ring a bell?
No, not offhand.
This was back in the late 90s. I was writing a script called The Omega Conspiracy. I think we talked about this before. I had no idea that I.D. Thomas already had a book by that title, but I was writing a script, a screenplay that dealt with cloning from the Shroud of Turin. I kind of had this idea of somebody decided to clone Jesus. It probably wouldn't come out very well. And I actually pitched it. I pitched it at an L.A. Pitch conference, but before that, I had posted it on Francis Ford Coppola's website. He's got a website called zoetrope.com where writers can submit and have peer reviews and whatnot. And I had a lot of great reviews, tons of great reviews. I was all excited to go pitch my story. The last review that came in was a 6-page review that totally shredded it. This guy just ripped me apart. And I was like, oh, man. But after I got over it, I thought, if somebody's going to spend the time to write a 6-page review, maybe he's got something to say. So I went back and reread it a few times and realized, oh, man, this script stinks, man. I got to rewrite this. And I'm getting on a plane the next morning to go from Massachusetts to L.A. And so on the plane ride out there, I rewrote an outline for the script, and that's what I pitched. I pitched it to several studios, and the studio that made Close Encounters of the Third Kind was interested in it. They wanted to option it, but so I'm like, crap, I don't have anything, All I wrote was an outline, so I said, hey, I'm in the process of a rewrite. Can I get back to you? And they said, sure. So I left there, and I had parked underneath, what is that place where they have the Academy Awards, Kodak Theater or something like that?
Yeah.
I can't remember. Yeah, I was parked underground there in the underground parking lot, and when I pulled out of the parking lot, I went to turn, and I turned to my left to see if there's any traffic coming. There was a dumpster, and somebody had spray painted on the dumpster, "Clone Jesus?" ? And I'm like, whoa, is this like a sign, And somehow during all that, I ended up getting connected. I think the guy's name is Ian Wilson. He was one of the guys that was really involved with a lot of the Shroud investigation there for a while. He was out in Boston. We had a lot of interesting conversations about it. So without giving too much away from your DVD, what's your take on it? You think it's authentic?
Oh, absolutely. I think the Shroud is the real deal. It is. I would call it God's calling card, or certainly the fingerprints of the supernatural. They didn't even know what they had until the invention of photography in the 20th century, or let's put it this way, when in the 19th century photography was invented. But the Shroud was photographed by Secunda Pia, I believe, in the 30s, 1939, I believe. Could be wrong on that date. It might be a lot earlier. But he had glass plates, and the story goes, which is just a wonderful story, he took pictures of the Shroud, and it was interesting, but when he went into his developing room to develop the pictures, to his utter amazement, and remember, we're in the digital age, so there's no more film, but back then that's what they had, and so, the young people won't understand this, but the oldsters will. They had negatives, which then were developed into positives. So the image that was taken in early photography was a negative image, and to his utter amazement, when he began to develop the film, what should have been a negative image was in fact a positive image, which means that the image on the Shroud is a negative image, which begs the question, how would a forger know that, hundreds of years later, someone would invent photography? Obviously they wouldn't. It's not a forgery. It is, I just call it the fingerprints, or God's calling card, fingerprints of the supernatural. I believe it's the real deal. The forensic evidence alone is overwhelming and contradicts many of the iconographic works of art that we have been inundated with since medieval times, basically showing the Christ figure without a really bloody scourging in most pictures. It's sort of sanitized and cleaned up, and the hands are painted in the palms. Well, it's what the Shroud shows is that the nail actually came through the back of the hand by the wrist, and that's the only place where you could hang someone, that you could just literally pin them to a cross through those bones there. Just fascinating. Plus, the forensic evidence shows that the scourging was particularly brutal. I mean, just the scourging, when he falls twice on the way to Calvary, it's for a reason. When he can't carry the cross anymore, it's for a reason. I mean, he was brutalized literally within an inch of his life. The only place that they did not whip was the area directly over his heart. Had they done that, he would have died on the whipping post. The scourging and the marks of the scourging are just incredibly brutal. And then on top of that, you've got the crown of thorns, which is more of a helmet of thorns, which was then pounded into his head. The wound from the spear shows up on the Shroud. And once again, the forensic evidence is consistent with modern-day forensics. We see a mixture of what the Bible tells us, or the written account of that, a mixture of blood and water pouring out, and that's exactly what we see on the Shroud. And it's obviously with the forensics that we have, we realize it's a certain, it looks like water, but it's actually a fluid that surrounds, I believe, in the pericardium. So all this is just incredibly accurate. There's no way a forger can duplicate this kind of stuff, in my opinion. It's just impossible. So it speaks of another physics that Dame Isabel Pixek discusses in our presentation that we know nothing about. She believed it's a point of singularity where it's sort of like a new Big Bang or a reverse Big Bang type of a deal, and it points to the new Adam, the resurrection. Of course, Christians, those of us who are born from above, believe this anyway, that the resurrection is a prototype of where we're all headed. So it's just fascinating. I think it's the most enigmatic and interesting artifact on planet Earth.
Yeah, I agree completely, man. I was obsessed with researching on that back in the late 90s, and I came to all the same conclusions you just talked about. That it's like a Polaroid. It's a snapshot of the resurrection. It's like, boom.
Yeah, I agree.
Most significant events of all of history right there captured for us to see. Pretty amazing. And on your other DVDs, Watchers 1 and 2, you talked about a bunch of things like cattle mutilation, alien implants, and grays and stuff. What's your take on that? What's the deal with cattle mutilation?
Well, first of all, with the cattle mutilation, it's very deliberate. And when a farmer comes out and sees his prized bull completely mutilated, all the blood drained from it, in some cases, again, the heart has been removed from the pericardium, but there's no incision. How can that possibly be? The animal has drained the blood. There's no footprints around it. The coyotes won't get near it. And this is high strangeness. And, there are people who are saying that certain aspects of our government are doing this. They see black helicopters. But as of this date, and this has been going on for decades, law enforcement has yet brought charges against anyone. I mean, this is obviously a felony. It's trespassing. It's animal cruelty. It's mutilation. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Law enforcement has of yet brought charges against anyone. They just haven't done it because they can never find anyone. The perpetrators seem to vanish into thin air. Also, there's some interesting parallels here. It's Linda Moulton Allen, a MUFON investigator, produced a DVD called Strange Harvest, which is now, I think, several decades old, actually. And she won an award for it because it was groundbreaking. And she calls it a strange harvest because, what is going on here? Why are these entities so interested in genetic material? Why are these entities so interested in the blood or the DNA? We see eyes cored out with laser-like precision, literally. Sex organs cored out. Anus is cored out. It's very grisly. In my opinion, it sends a message. I mean, all they have to do is just take the cow and drop it someplace else, like in the ocean or something, and no one would ever be the wiser. But that's not the case. It's extremely deliberate. They put it back in the farmer's field, and basically it sends a signal to not only the farmer, but law enforcement as well, that we come and go with complete impunity. We can do whatever we want, and you can't stop us. This sends a message, and farmers who experience this, cattle ranchers who experience this, are, needless to say, really disturbed by what they see. Really disturbed, and rightfully so. And it begs the question, who is doing it and why? And, of course, in my opinion, it goes back to, we know where I'm going with this, back into Genesis 6, the whole idea. When I asked Chuck Missler, when we interviewed him for Watchers 2, we were also doing Watchers 4, and we asked him about the Nephilim, and I said, Chuck, do you believe that there's modern-day Nephilim? And Missler answered, by the way, without hesitation on his part. He said, yeah, Satan's at number 2 to 1, he's building an army. So whether it's genetic manipulation or fallen angel sex with women or some sort of combination of the two, while we really can't tell or say exactly what it is, something is going on, and I find it extremely disturbing.
Yeah. Did you see the latest Tron movie, the remake there? Or I guess it's considered a sequel.
Yeah, I watched part of it.
A line toward the end of it, and the bad guy there, the good Jeff Bridges character said he can't create anything of his own. He's building an army. He can only repurpose old models.
Yeah, so all right.
Yeah, I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I mean, the genetic material and the manipulation that the fallen one is doing, he can't create anything of his own. It's like Frankenstein. He's taking a bit of this and a bit of that and creating a hybrid on some level. At least that's what some of us believe.
So do you think that the alien grays are just basically biosuits for demons?
Yeah, that's my take on it, yeah. I think the grays are biological biosuits that allow the demonic, literally demons, which are disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. I realize there are people that don't agree with that. That's fine. Have a different take on it. But I believe, as others do, like C.S. Larkin, J.R. Church, Pember, and a whole host of other people, believe that demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim left over from the flood. They are earthbound spirits. And so they need something to inhabit. We see proof of this when Yeshua cast out the demons from the man of the tomb. And he asked, who are you? Legion, for we are many. Well, these many demons are inhabiting this one man. And when he casts them out, of course, they go into the herd of swine. So the fallen one knows that he needs them to manifest in this dimension. And so he creates this bodysuit, biological bodysuit, which are, they all look the same. And these demonic entities can inhabit them. And I realize that for people who have never traveled with this stuff, this sounds beyond science fiction, as Jim Williamson's book is so aptly titled. And it is. I mean, we are dealing with, as my friend Gary Schultz used to say, the fallen one, the dragon, Satan, is a super scientist. I mean, he is. He's a super scientist, a demented one. But nonetheless, he's brilliant at what he can do. And I think that we Christians have a tendency to put the fallen one in a box, and I think that's a very dangerous position because, in my opinion, I don't see anything in Scripture that, in some ways, limit. I'd rather err to his ability. I'd rather err to the side of, or take the position, err to the side or take the position that he's capable of a lot more than what we give him credit for. When 2 Thessalonians says that the fallen comes with all signs and lying wonders, I think we would do well to take that literally and understand that what is coming on this earth will deceive even the elect if that were possible.
Yeah, that's actually the reason why I'm doing everything I'm doing. That scripture's always freaked me out, man. I mean, when you hear that scripture that it could be possible that even the elect could be deceived, and this deception can be so great, man, my prayer became, Lord, I don't want to be in that category. I mean, I want to do everything I can to learn and be educated so that I don't get deceived, and furthermore, do everything I can to try to dispense that information so that other people won't be deceived, because I believe it's serious, man. I think it's really, really serious. We need to start paying attention. And this stuff, a lot of people think it's just science fiction. They think it's crazy, tinfoil hat, Kool-Aid drinking stuff, but it's real. As you say, UFOs are real, burgeoning, and not going away. I mean, I put together a little 8-minute montage of UFO sightings just in the last 2 to 3 years. It's 8 minutes long, and there's been just about that many in the last few months is what I put together in that that video. I mean, it is rapidly increasing. And speaking of that, you covered the UFO over the Temple Mount. I know a lot of people thought that was legitimate. You take a different take. You have a different take on it. Can you talk a little bit about that? What did you find out regarding the?
We spoke to a special effects wizard that works in Hollywood, and we showed him that this guy doesn't really have a UFO dog in the hunt. Okay, so we said, look, what do you think of this? And he watched it. He said, wow, it looks pretty convincing. Until it flashed upward. When it streaked upward, he just goes, oh, that's a post-production effect called a stretch. Just like that, bam. And just, instantly said that. What was interesting, however, is we showed some footage from Dr. Roger Lear. So we knew the source of the footage. We vetted the footage. We know Dr. Lear, whose credentials are impeccable. And he was in Turkey and filmed a craft, which had appeared there 3 years in a row or 4 years in a row at the same time, the same day. So he's out there with his camera filming this thing. And, this gentleman in the special effects field in Hollywood looked at it and said, well, that looks fake too. And then we kind of told him, well, it's not fake. So people believe that the Jerusalem UFO is the real deal. I'm not so sure. And I remain very skeptical when I see anything. There was someone sent another video last night to me of yet another sighting over the temple now. And, it looks very convincing. And Richard Shaw, my friend and co-producer of the Watcher series, we took one look at it, and we both said, hoax. It's a fake. It's done in Photoshop. So there's just a lot of nonsense out there. But then you've got the people that, aren't looking for notoriety, aren't trying to do a hoax, and they're out there with their camera, and they see something, and then they get on film. And there's a lot more of those, I think, than the hoaxes.
Yeah. That was definitely ramping up his activity. And one of the other things you deal with in your Watchers series is the whole aspect of the alien implants. What did you discover about that?
Well, what's interesting about this, Rob, is that there are two other researchers who have come to the same conclusion that I have, and there's no collusion between us, and they arrived there through a different set of discipline, or a different set of research, I should say. I arrived at this conclusion from talking to Dr. Roger Lear and holding these implants in my hand. So while the skeptics will say, well, these things aren't real, I beg to differ. I've seen them. I mean, these people that are skeptical or some of the naysayers and say that this whole thing is demonic delusion would do well to actually do some research before they start blowing their horn, with all due respect. The phenomena is real. It can be delusional, and it can also be hardcore physical, reality. And this implant was hardcore physical reality. It's got nanotubes. It's got a clock rate, that we've discovered, we've postulated, theorized, that this thing is running about 100 times faster than the fastest computer on the planet. In other words, what these little they have nanotubes in them, Rob. What this little chip could be is like literally a super computer. And what Lear believes, remember, he's got no Nephilim dog in the hunt like we do. He doesn't have it. The guy who just looks at this stuff and, he's a researcher, but he has no Nephilim dog in the hunt. And he told me he believed that these chips, these implants, were changing the host's DNA. And when I heard that, I immediately went to the book of Revelation. And there is a bunch of criteria that is overlooked. And I felt, and this is my, it's all in the Cosmic Chess Match, but I've gone on the air, and the moment I discovered it, even before the chapter was written, I was talking about it. When we look at what Yeshua tells us, it'll be like the days of Noah when he returned. So that begs the question, what differentiates those days? And it's the presence of the fallen angels. I mean, that's certainly the main criteria that differentiates the days of Noah from any other time. It's the presence of the fallen angels and then subsequently the Nephilim. But there's another dynamic there that's often overlooked, and that, of course, is the longevity of people living at the time. Some of these people were living 700, 800, 900 years, all right, which is really an interesting dynamic. So, it's interesting in Scripture, like, before the crucifixion, no one ever thought to overlay Isaiah 53 and Psalm 22 together. It's the best of my knowledge, no rabbi ever thought to do that. Overlay Psalm 22 with Isaiah 53, you get a very unique painting, if I can use that word, of the crucifixion, hundreds of years before the event. Well, it might be the same thing with this. In other words, when we take that passage of Matthew 24 and we overlay other scriptures, specifically from Revelation, we find that you won't be able to buy, sell, or trade. Okay, we get that.